All right, can everyone hear me? Yeah. All right, we'll get started here. This session's about branding and styling your Salesforce community. I'm assuming you guys all know what communities are. I'm Scott Giasitz. I'm a technical architect with Visualforce. I've been there about 2 months. Before that, I've worked for another Salesforce partner. So I've been doing platform development for about 3.5 years now, across all areas, a lot of custom dev, integrations with Heroku and such, and some work with communities as well. So today we're going to talk about, obviously, branding and styling communities. We'll do a quick introduction to communities. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. If you have questions about what communities can do, you can come up and talk to me afterwards. But I really want to focus on the branding. Give an overview of the different types of branding first, and then we'll go into some more technical deep dives on each of the different types of branding and some live demos too. We'll follow it up with a summary and then some questions. So what is Communities? Communities is a platform component which allows you to expose data and functionality to external users, or you can do internal users as well. Think of it as a collaborative site or a forum for either partners or customers or employees, or you can have a combination of all those. If you have been using Salesforce for a while, you remember the old customer and partner portals. So Communities has replaced those. You still have all the old portal functionality available to you, but it gives you a deeper branding and customization capability, and you have better navigation on mobile devices. Some of the things you can do with Communities include increasing your brand loyalty. You can get customer feedback through things like chatter and ideas. You can increase your case deflection through like knowledge and solutions or setting up some of the self-service type functionality. You can do team-based selling, either internally or with partners. And you can promote employee collaboration and problem solving. So talk a little bit about branding and the different ways that we can brand the communities. So out of the box, if you set a community up, you're going to get the default Salesforce look and feel. It looks a lot like a regular Salesforce instance. So there's 3 different branding models that they provide you to be able to kind of tailor your community. The first one is called basic branding, and you're still kind of left with a Salesforce look and feel, but you have the ability to customize some things. You can set the colors of your site. You can create kind of more customized header and footer images, and inject some HTML there to really kind of get more of a custom look and feel. You can even go as far as overriding some of the Salesforce styles inline. And we'll look at some of those examples. The next way you can brand a community is through site.com. And this really kind of allows you to start getting away from that default look and feel and using more of a WYSIWYG editor to set up the communities. So once you go this route, you can kind of hand it over to your marketing department. And again, these are kind of going to depend on your use case, on what you're using the community for, which method you want to go. And then finally, we have Visualforce pages, which can give you a completely custom experience, as you see here, where you really no longer look like Salesforce. So as you know, Visualforce kind of gives you the ability to do all kinds of custom front-end look and feel. So basic branding, think of it as a quick and dirty approach. Again, it's going to look basically like Salesforce. Your chatter tab will look like chatter basically, but you're going to have some things you can do with the color configurations and your logo images, or like I said, the HTML code, and we'll look at that in a minute. It's real easy to set up and configure, and you can even override the logo on the login page as well if you want to. For site.com, again, like I mentioned, it gives you a richer user experience. If you've used site.com, it's got the WYSIWYG editor. Basically allow you to kind of drag and drop components onto your pages. And then you can also modify the HTML code in there directly for the different content areas or the CSS styles. And there is a new Communities designer with the Winter 15 release. It's in beta mode. So if you get in there and kind of start playing around, you'll notice that out there. So with Visualforce branding, then, we really have full control over the look and feel of the community. Naturally, it's going to require developers and or designers to allow you to pull that off. But it really gives you the ability to kind of use as much or as little of the default Salesforce look and feel. And the other added benefit is you can have really now pull in all your data from your Salesforce org and have that data drive your styling and your branding. So it does really make it possible to do some neat things. So now I want to go into some of the demos and kind of show you some of these different branding models. We're going to basically take a use case where we have a third-party travel wholesaler. We'll call it Acme Leisure Group. And this Acme Leisure Group is going to provide a white label loyalty program for different hotels and resorts to the consumers. So what we want to do is we want to set up a community that'll allow Acme Leisure Group to provide marketing and product information, deals, and customer service stuff to their customers. Before we get into the demos, though, I just want to throw this out there. I'm a developer. I write code. I don't make things look pretty. So you'll see some of the stuff I kind of threw together here. If you have a UX person on your team, you know the great things they can do for you. That's really not me, though. So just be forewarned. So basic branding, like I mentioned, it's really the easiest way to go. So you'll see here you have there's some dialogues, and we'll look at these when we get in there to the live portion of the demo. But you can go in there and you're given the ability to override a bunch of the colors on the community, the tab colors and things like that. Again, the ability to provide header and footer images or custom HTML. And then again, the ability to override the logo on the login page there. Like I mentioned, you can put HTML into the header. So this is slightly more advanced, but not really. A real simple example here is just a div tag that we have in there. And we're just going to take it and kind of put a custom logo in there. So you can get as simple or complex with this as you want. I've seen some communities where they've completely overridden all the styles, all the Salesforce styles, and it really, even just with this method, the HTML you can put in the header, you can really make it look kind of unique for your brand. So, let's take a look at the basic branding here. All right, so if we go into our setup menu here, which is where we're at, and under Customize, all your community stuff is down here. So I have 3 different communities created for the 3 different models here, but you'll see here our basic branding example. So if you go under Administration Settings here, you'll see here's where we can set up our branding. So this is that dialogue you saw on the slide there. So you see it's kind of set up here with, there's some different color schemes you can pick here. So if we take a look at this community, and from here you can preview the communities. So if I open this up here, you see it's pretty basic. But we have our colors here. But everything on the community are, you have your Salesforce style tabs. Chatter looks like chatter inside your Salesforce org. But then if we go in here, we can change the colors a little bit. So let's say we do this. We'll make it really colorful and ugly here. Save it off. And now we refresh it over here. And you see, so you can kind of do some real simple stuff. If you're okay with the default look and feel, this will get you where you need to go. But then what we can also do is, if you come in here, go back under branding. So now what I've done ahead of time is I created that little HTML snippet you saw on the slide there before. I uploaded it into my documents folder, put it in a public folder. You need it in a public folder to be visible in the community. So we have it here. We're going to select that. And basically, if you remember the HTML, it was just pulling in an image that I had. So now I save this off, and what you're going to see is if we go back to the community, we're going to have our color scheme that we selected, but now it's going to pull in this custom image here. So, and you can do that with, you can put stuff on the footer here as well. You can override your footer. But just some simple stuff that you can do with the branding there. So, it may be the case that you're okay with that. It might be an internal employee community that you're setting up, and the default look and feel is okay. You just want to kind of colorize it and put some logos up there. So in that case, the basic branding will probably get you where you need to go. So let's talk about the site.com branding a little bit. Site.com, you really want to kind of start thinking about your user experience and the flow of the site. If you're going to go the site.com route, you have to make the decision to kind of have the site fully driven by your site.com pages. Because, and you'll see the way you configure it, you have to switch it over to not use the default Salesforce tabs. You're going to use it completely hosted out of site.com. You also do have the ability with site.com to pull in data from Salesforce as well. You're a little bit more limited what you can do versus true Visualforce. But you can start getting data out of your org and exposed up on your community that way. So the site.com editor, if you're not familiar with it, it's a WYSIWYG editor. We'll take a look at it here in a minute. It's kind of drag and drop. You can kind of set up templates. I'm not going to go into a real deep dissertation on site.com. There's a lot of good documentation out there on it if you want to kind of look that up. But you can basically build page templates and then create pages off those templates. It got components that you can drag and drop and move around, and then you can kind of more fine-tune your styles and the actual HTML behind it if you want. So we'll go out and take a look at this now. We come back to our org here, and we have our communities that we have set up. You'll see now I have a site.com branding example here. So if we open this, right now I don't have it set up. I just created the community. So you'll see it's still showing our default look and feel here. So what we want to do is, if we come in here to our administration settings, if you go to tabs and pages, you'll see it's still using salesforce.com tabs. And here's where you can select the different tabs that you want to expose there. So you'll see we have, for this particular community, we have chatter, cases, and ideas. And you'll see those are the tabs that are showing up there. So what we want to do here is we're going to switch this over to use Community Designer to create our custom community pages. So once we do that now, what's going to end up happening is, if we now go and view this, and I preloaded a page just for our header page here. We're not going to go through all the trouble of creating a page from scratch. But so if we go to our community now, you see it's kind of really starting to look a little more customized and not the default Salesforce look and feel. So we come back here and you go to Community Designer, and we open that up. So this is basically site.com. And again, like I said, you got the ability to create templates, create pages from those templates. You can kind of tune your style sheets. There's assets that you can upload, like all your image files and things like that. But we have our home page here that we created. So if we open this guy up, we take a look here. So you'll see this is basically the page that you saw when I switched the community over to use this. So we can go in here and we can edit these components like this. Like let's say we wanted to change the text on this here. Save that off. And there's a lot of cool features about the site.com editor here, but like one of the nice things is the preview page. So you can kind of click this and see what your changes look like as you're making them. Because with site.com, you have to publish your changes out. So any of the changes you make here are really in your working copy. It's not until you publish that it goes out on the live site. So if we were to come back out to our community here and refresh it, you're not going to see the changes I just made because it hasn't been published. If I was to publish that, then they would go out there. But basically it gives you the kind of, the ability to, you can come in here and you can kind of mess with the styles on this stuff. We can change the text color here if we want it. Save that off. So it's really a more kind of intuitive editor that you can kind of hand over to a marketing department and let them kind of run with it with your site layout and look and feel, and really the content on it as well. So there may be use cases where this type of site makes sense, where you really just want to kind of have marketing information that you expose out to your customers, and it's not really so much, they're opening cases through the community or things like that. Although you get creative, you probably could integrate some of that stuff in here as well. And you do have the ability to create snippets out in site.com and pull those in as Visualforce tabs. I'm not going to go into that, but if you want to talk about that, you can kind of come up and see me afterwards, and I'd be happy to talk about that with you as well. So that's site.com for doing your branding. So now we get into the Visualforce branding, and what I want to do is kind of create a little use case here to kind of set the stage for the demo. So what we want to do is we want to provide a community that is custom branded for, and if you remember, we have this Acme Leisure Group, which is offering up loyalty programs in a white label fashion to the customers of the community. So a particular customer is associated with a particular resort, and we want to really custom brand the community experience for that resort when they log in. So we have two different customers in the community. Customer A is going to have one look and feel. Customer B will have a completely different look and feel. So we want to have it branded not to Acme Leisure Group, but to the individual resort. So naturally, if you couldn't do it with Visualforce and Apex, we wouldn't be up here talking about it. So what we're going to do is for Tim Barr, who in our use case here is part of the Grand Island Resorts loyalty program, we want them to kind of have a user experience that looks like this, where you have the Grand Island Resort, their logo, and you have some information and news about them. But then if Lauren Boyle logs in, she's a member of the Paradise Hotel loyalty program. So she's going to get a different logo, different images, different information out there on the site. But this is all through one community. So we have some data in Salesforce that we're going to leverage to kind of display some of this stuff out there. So for the purpose of the demo, we have hotel information that we've loaded. We've created some news articles for each hotel, which you saw on the homepage there, and you'll see them in more detail in a minute. And then just some information about the rooms that each hotel offers. So kind of think of this more as like a marketing kind of site for these resorts. And in addition, the customer community users, you know how community users are associated with a contact. So on the contact record, we put a lookup to the hotel that the user is associated with. And that's what we're going to kind of leverage to get our information about how to brand it. So some design notes here. We're going to need a page for the hotel landing page, the home page. And we're going to create another page that is going to list out the rooms for each hotel. We could do a whole lot more than this, but because we have a certain amount of time, we're going to kind of keep it to just those 2 pages. But what we want to have is like a common header and footer that we want to share across all pages. So we'll create a separate page for each of these two, the landing page and the room page, and then we'll import that header and footer into the Visualforce pages so that we only have to make those changes in one place. So naturally, we're going to need code to drive this, and you want to follow good design patterns, so we're going to create controllers for these guys. We're going to set up a service, which will do the business logic and all our data access, and then we'll have the Visualforce pages, which will actually implement the user interface elements. A couple of security considerations. You want to make sure that all your custom objects have read access for your profile. And in this case, I took one of the customer community profiles and just cloned it. So it's called sample customer community. Otherwise, that information will not pull through out to the community. So, and the other thing you need to do, of course, is to give access to the Apex and Visualforce that we create. So how are we going to actually do this custom branding? What we're going to do is when the user logs in, we're going to get its contact, and then we'll look up the hotel that contact is associated with, and then from the hotel record, we'll have information like the text color, background images, and such that we're going to then inject into our Visualforce page with inline styles. So now it is time to look at some code. So the controllers, remember, we're going to have a shared header and footer, so we want to have a base controller that we're going to use here. It's got basically just a contact property, and you see when the controller is instantiated there, it's calling methods on the service that we said we were going to create, this hotel community service, to get the contact given a user ID. So we have convenience methods for each of those, and we'll look at the service in a minute there. But basically, this base controller, it's going to get a contact and hang on to it there, so we can get all the information out of the contact that we need. Then we want to create a controller for the landing page. So you see it extends our base controller there, and now we're going to pull in some additional information like the hotel and a list of these hotel news items. And the hotel news items are, we'll look at this in the service, basically created a wrapper for the hotel news object because we wanted to do some custom date formatting on it. We didn't want to use the date format right out of Salesforce, so do a little bit of custom date formatting on there. That's why we have that wrapper class. We see our constructor basically just goes and it fetches the hotel and it gets the list of news items so that we can render those out on our Visualforce page. The hotel room list that we're going to implement, we also have a controller that extends the base, and then this basically just gets a list of hotel rooms from our service. In this case, we're going to pass the hotel ID that we established when we logged in and use that to fetch our rooms. So our service is, we're going to create this single service, and I mean, good design patterns are you want to abstract out keep your controllers just doing the page control and put your actual business logic or data access out in the services. So here's our get user ID, and it's just going to pull the user ID out of the currently logged in user. We have a get contact, which will take that user ID then and then do a SQL query to look up the user or the contact out of the database. And it's just going to return it. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing really terribly challenging with any of this Apex code you see here. Get hotel does basically the same thing. It gets a hotel ID, and as long as it's not null, it'll go out and pull the hotel record. And again, typically you're going to want to return lists of objects, but we know we have a single one here, so we're taking some shortcuts for the demo. So here's the hotel news method that I was talking about with the wrapper object. So you see basically this is doing a SQL query to pull our list of hotel news items, and then it's kind of just creating that wrapper with it so that we can return that slightly better formatted date. Get rooms method, same thing, pulls a list of rooms, returns those, orders them by price. And then here's our wrapper. So it basically just kind of encapsulates a hotel news object and does some formatting on the create date. So for our Visualforce that we need to create, the first thing we want to do is we want to override the standard Salesforce look and feel. If we don't do this, our community is going to have kind of the header and sidebar or whatever else you need, or that you typically get with your Visualforce pages. So to do that, we set this show header equals false, and then we can truly override the page with whatever we want. We're going to use standard HTML5 tags, and we'll put, for the data where we need it, we're going to use Apex repeater tags to loop over our data collections. And then CSS style sheets, obviously, to control the overall look and style of our pages, too. And like I mentioned before, to do the actual branding that's specific to each customer, we'll use inline styling for that. I'll show you that in a minute here. So the shared header and footer page, basically what we have here, you see we have our show header false, and then we start getting down into using just HTML5 instead of just pure Apex tags. And you'll see here how we're doing the custom branding here. So we have our style here now gets set to an image which we're grabbing from the contact record. So as different contacts log in, we'll be showing different images here in the header. Same thing with the hotel name. So you'll see that when we load up the page, you'll see it has the hotel name showing there. Also here, when you're setting up your communities, you want to get a reference back to your base URL, and the way you do that is with this site prefix. So we're going to use, this is our navigation menu here. So we have a link to our home page, and we have a link to our rooms page here too, where we're going to pass the hotel ID. And then this here is how you want to, if you have your logout link on the community, it's just a standard way to kind of include that on your page using a site prefix /secure/logout. And then we want to tailor it to the user, so we're going to put their user first name and last name on there as well. So this is our header. So now looking at the landing page here, what we're going to do is we want to do an include on the header and the footer, like I mentioned. And then we're going to put an image. You saw the image there on those screenshots on the left that was particular for each hotel. So we're going to load in their homepage image from the hotel record, set the text color there, and then basically loop over the news items. So we have those news articles that were listed there. Just do an Apex repeat tag and loop over those and display them out there. For our room list page, again, we have our shared header and footer that we're going to link in, and then a repeater that goes through the hotel rooms. And these are all coming out of the controller and calling back into the service like we saw. So you see this is getting the information about the room and then displaying that. So when we set this up, you're going to need developers or designers or however you want to do that to create the actual Apex and Visualforce. Then you're going to want to create a Visualforce tab, and I'll show you how we do that. for the home and landing page. We're going to add the tab to our community set of tabs and remove the other tabs from the tab set, and then that kind of takes over and drives the community from there. So let's take a look at how we do this. All right. So we have our third and final community here that we set up. And if we open this up right now, again, I've done nothing to this other than just set it up and set the colors. Again, it still looks like the basic community. So first thing we want to do here is we're going to go in and under develop here, or sorry, create tabs, we've got to set up a Visualforce tab like I mentioned. So we want to pull in, so we already have our code out there for the Visualforce page code, and our controllers I already have set up out there. So we have this hotel homepage that you saw. We're going to link that in. We're going to call it Hotel Home. I'll give it an image here. And obviously you're going to want to set these based on who should see them. We're just going to take the shortcut here. Everyone gets access to it. So now we have this Hotel Home Visualforce tab. So now if we go back out to our community settings here, and under tabs and pages, what we're going to do is we're going to pull chatter out of there, and we're going to put Hotel Home in there. So this, again, remember, this is our Visualforce page here. And we'll look at the community in a minute, but what I want to do first is I want to show you how we have kind of the data set up in here to drive this. So what we have here is there's a hotels tab. You'll see these are the two hotels that that we have in our use case here. So we have, if we go to Grand Island Resort, you'll see I just got some basic data in here. There's text color. I could have used like a color picker or gotten a little bit crazier with this, but it's just standard HTML color code. Background image, and I just want to show a preview of that. And again, you can have these hosted externally. I chose to put them I loaded them in as documents so they load a little faster. Some text to show here on the home page, our homepage image that we're going to display. And then you get down here and you see our rooms here. So if we look into these, like let's say our deluxe room. So just some information about the room, a description and a picture. And then news items here. So these are little articles that you can display on the home page. So again, it's just title and content, nothing too fancy there. And in our contacts here, so we can access this from the contact page, but it also shows up on here as a related list. So we don't, these are our contacts that are associated with this resort. So if we go up here and open up Tim, we can see here that he has Grand Island Resort as his hotel that he's associated with. So what we want to do here is we're going to go up to Manage External User. I already set these guys up ahead of time as community users. So we're going to log into Community as User. And because I have 3 communities set up, I have to pick the one I want. So it's the Loyalty Customer Community here. And we click OK, and now we get the Grand Island Resort custom tailored experience for Tim. So you'll see here's our news item that we had out there. And then if we go over here to our rooms and suites, it's going to pull in our different rooms here, and they're sorted by price. So now, close that one off. If we come back out here, and now contacts, not contracts. If we go over here and we log in as Lauren, you'll notice Lauren Boyle now is associated with the Paradise Hotel. So we want to log in as her. And you'll see now she gets a completely different experience here. Different image, different branding up here, the news items that are associated with the Paradise Hotel, and the actual rooms and suites here for the Paradise Hotel. So this is all data-driven branding here that you're seeing. So now if we go to Paradise Hotel, And I want to come in here and we're going to put the double room on special. But it's a special in our favor. So we're going to make the double room here is now $400. So if we now come in here and log back in, I should have just left it open. And we look at our rooms and suites here. You see the double room's now $400. We could change any of this information here and it'll pull right into the community. So let's say we realize that 400 is too much. We're going to change it back to 300 and save it off. And like that, I mean, it's updated out there right away. So now, like, let's say we want to switch Lauren over to use, let's say she's no longer associated with the Paradise Hotel. She's now with the Grand Island Resort as well. If we go back to the home page now, you'll see she's associated with the Grand Island Resort. So it really gives us a way to, and again, this is a use case that we actually had to look into at my last company where we had a customer that wanted to do custom branded experience by user. So some things to remember as you're going through and setting this up. Don't forget to give your permissions or make your objects and your Apex and Visualforce available to those user profiles. Always, always, always use good design principles and separation of concerns with your code. I can't stress that one enough. We didn't get into it, but you can override the login and the forgot password pages. It's a little bit more involved, but that's possible as well. So you can really kind of take the entire community experience and custom tailor it. What I've found useful in my experience is to use the inline styling where appropriate to change your branding. It works well. And if you really want to get radically different and have, let's say we wanted our Grand Island Resort to have a completely different layout and look and feel than the Paradise Hotel, you could really override your CSS files. So you could create resort-specific CSS files and do it that way. I mean, we kept it fairly simple with the styles that we were using so that it was a similar layout but different branding. But you could get as crazy as you want, really. The ability to do this stuff through Visualforce gives you almost unlimited flexibility with that. However, if you don't need the power of Visualforce, it's always better to keep things simple. So if you can get by with the basic branding, it's going to be a lot less to maintain and update over time. So, quick summary, your community's branding can be as simple or as complex as you desire or as your use case dictates, really. The basic is easy to maintain, but you're limited with the flexibility that you have. Site.com is really more, think of that more as your marketing-driven approach, that you can hand it off to non-technical people. And Visualforce gives you the ultimate flexibility, but it also is the most effort to maintain over time. So just a couple of links here for you to kind of get started on playing around with this. The Getting Started with Communities is the Salesforce Communities implementation guide. It's very good at walking you through setting up the community, some of the advanced communities configuration features and things like that. So I would definitely start with that if you've never played around with communities before. Using communities with site.com is a link to a video by Joe Morse talking you through how to set up your site.com communities pages. Very similar to what we demoed here today. We didn't really get into talking a whole lot about chatter and how you pull chatter in there, but the third link here talks about how you take chatter and you can pull that into your Visualforce pages as well and expose that. So that really gives you a lot of power that you can make that collaboration tool available inside of a fully customized experience. And then the last three links here is a three-part tutorial on the Visualforce end of the customer community customization. So it's a good tutorial to walk through as well, and it goes through a lot of the same kind of stuff that I did. So with that, I'll open it up to questions if anyone has questions. Yep. If you want to go up to the mic so everyone can hear.
So I love the personalized content with the Visualforce. Mm-hmm. I was just wondering, like, if you had a customer with multiple experiences, say for a subscription and like industry vertical, could you personalize like 2 community experiences, and how would they navigate to each one if that's possible?
So you're talking about really different functionality inside of, based on the vertical that you're in. So not
Right.
just branding, but really kind of different functionality. Yeah, so I mean, you can do that through Visualforce. So you can, you know, through your Apex logic that you create, you can have conditional functionality that if, you know, the user is a member of this particular, again, you would identify them with that vertical somehow. Maybe like we did our lookup on the contact record or something like that. And you could use that to kind of drive a lot of your logic in terms of what you display, what you don't display for different users.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good start. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So if you just want to port an existing website with all its branding and everything,
Yep.
I'm sure you can do it with visualforce.com, but if you would decide to do it with site.com, would that be possible?
Site.com does have the ability to import existing, you can definitely do existing asset files. I don't know, I think you can do, there's a way to do it. I think you can pull in some HTML through site.com as well. Doing it through Visualforce, it's gonna require more of a rewrite. But yeah, site.com does have some ability to pull that in. I don't know if everything will come in, but you can definitely get.
In one of your earlier slides, you also mentioned a new beta product for site.com. Like
Yeah, they have. I think it. I haven't had a chance to look into it because it literally came out into my org this week. But they have.
Is that the light? What they call?
It's
lighting?
No, it's the communities designer. So I think it's a rebranding of the site.com for communities. But I think they're offering up some additional features as well. So I definitely, I mean, if you're interested in going that route, I would look into that because that is out with Winter 15, at least in the beta mode, so you can at least play around with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
As a licensing question, is the sites separate from communities? I know because we just purchased communities.
Yeah, when you license communities, you do get site.com for use with that community.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, so we've run into a number of situations where we have clients that have their own corporate website or WordPress site or whatever.
Yep.
And they have some use case for a community and they want to have both of them play well together.
Right.
And it's been really challenging to figure out what the best approach is to try to build that in. You know, you can, if you turn off some security things, you can embed a community page in some other website, WordPress or whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do that.
Right.
So then you're forced to maybe just have them flip over to another domain and try to make the navigation look similar enough so it doesn't be too much of a jarring user experience. I just wondered if you had seen any other ways to more tightly integrate a community with an existing content management system.
I wouldn't use the word tightly. You can do some stuff with like Visualforce tabs, or you can pull in some things from the corporate website. If you're at the point where you need to really kind of have data flow between the two of them, you might want to look at something more like Canvas or something like that, where you can really kind of, then you're getting more of a data integration between the two websites. If it's a matter of, you know, I have these 3 pages hosted by the community and then I click on this link and I want it really to kind of go out to the corporate website, which may share the same branding, so they look the same. The customer doesn't know that they're on a different site, but you know, you can kind of do that through Visualforce tabs.
It's almost a little bit the opposite. It's like they have their own corporate
wanna go
website,
from
but
the
they want to
corporate back
have
to-
a logged in
yeah.
experience for a couple, like event registration or something like that.
Yeah, so and I guess it depends on what authentication needs you have too, because you can have, there's public, you know, you can create public pages
Yeah, it
in the
has to be
community,
authenticated
and
too. So.
that makes it easier. If you have to authenticate, then it definitely gets trickier. So
Yeah, all right,
yep. I mean, we can talk more after too if you want.
sure.
Anyone else? No? All right. Oh. What's that?
Can you go to the previous slide, the one?
The links? Yeah. Yeah, this will get, I'll post this out on the chatter feed then too, the whole slide presentation as well for you. So. All right. Thanks.